No, I'm Tracy Horner and I'm head of Lendwithcare. It's so nice to see so many of you here today. We've been moving this event further and further up the country since we started Lendwithcare. A few of you have kind of asked a little bit about, just for me to explain a bit about care and where care fits in with Lendwithcare. So essentially, Care International started 70 years ago, or 71 years ago now actually, and it was Americans giving care packages to war-torn Europe. And we had our kind of anniversary event last year. And essentially, I kind of think of Lendwithcare as the modern day care package, because it was the kindness of strangers putting a box of goods together for people that were suffering after the war in the UK. And now I kind of think of Lendwithcare as the kindness of a stranger reaching out by giving a loan to an entrepreneur in a developing country. So Care, like I say, started 70 years ago, and now we've expanded to work in about 80 countries, and we do a lot of kind of disaster relief work as well as long-term development. And one of the things for the long-term development we do is microfinance, which is kind of how Lendwithcare fits into the whole scheme of things. So Lendwithcare works through partners we've got 11 different countries now. We're lucky enough to have Daniela, who's from one of our partners, the Microloan Foundation, that works in Malawi and Zambia with Lendwithcare. So Daniela, after my colleague Ajaz, is going to talk a bit about how we kind of measure or try to measure the impact of microfinance on the ground. But first of all, Ajaz is standing in the doorway looking like he's about to escape somewhere. So after me, Ajaz is going to talk to you a bit more about the kind of loans that we have on the website and a bit of insight about why some of the loans are different sizes and different groups, etc. The Lendwithcare has been going now for just over 6 years, and initially it was just me and Ajaz. So I still remember when we had probably 20 or 30 lenders to begin with, and we were wondering whether it would ever grow. And now...
A 6-month contract at the beginning.
You were on a 6-month contract. I was already at Care, but yeah, I'd forgotten about that. And Ajaz and I met at the airport once. He's from Blackburn, so we met at Heathrow Airport on our very first trip to train our first partner. And now I think there's about 33,000 of you all kind of lending. And in June we announced that we lent £10 million. And then Elise, my newest colleague, announced that literally a month later, or 2 months later, we've now lent £11 million. So the kind of exponential growth, thanks to you guys all kind of joining in, is phenomenal. So yeah, I think I've got the best job in the whole world, because I get to meet all you and talk to you about why you love Lendwithcare, but also I get to meet some of the entrepreneurs we work with. And I've recently been to Malawi and Zambia, and they're sort of kind of so touched by the fact that there's someone on the other side of the world that kind of knows that they exist and is wishing them well in their business. And that's kind of just a really nice thing for you to know, that people do know that you're out there. You get to see their faces, they don't really get to see yours, but yeah, they're really, really happy about that. So rather than me ramble on for a long time, I'm going to... Yeah, Ajaz is much better at rambling than I am. And then kind of at the end, I'm just going to sum up, tell you a bit about what more you might be able to do to support us, and introduce all the rest of my colleagues. So
Right.
over to Ajaz. If you don't mind, I'm going to sit down.
All right, so thank you first of all for coming along. As Tracy just said, first of all, thank you. I mean, thank you for supporting Lendwithcare. Without people like yourself, it simply wouldn't be possible. What I wanted to discuss today is just speak a little bit about the types of loans that we support on Lendwithcare. It's a question that a lot of lenders ask me, why do we feature the loans that we do? What's the rationale behind it? So I just want to discuss a little bit. So most of the people that we feature on Lendwithcare, they're self-employed small businessmen and women. So they're typically small-scale farmers, tailors, rickshaw drivers, tradesmen of different types, and people running small grocery shops. Now, all these people, most of them would be considered poor within their own countries. by and large, they're people who would not qualify for a loan if they went along to their local bank. So their businesses are constrained by and large. The loan that we finance through Lendwithcare is for them to develop their businesses and to generate income to support the household. So that point is very, very key. We don't finance loans for consumption, so there's no people buying televisions or Sky dishes or anything like that on the website. It must be a productive loan. So our partners, including the organisation Daniela works for in Zambia and Malawi, they're the ones who analyse the loan applications to make sure that the business proposals that people submit are feasible, that they're going to generate income, and they'll be able to repay their loans. We don't, another word for a loan is debt. We don't want to encumber poor people with debt they cannot repay. Around 2/3 of the borrowers that we feature on Lendwithcare are women. But within this broad policy of small-scale businessmen and women, tradespeople, grocery shops, etc., that's the majority of the types of loans that we feature on Lendwithcare. That's the broad policy. But within that, we have several subcategories of borrowers, which I'm going to speak a little bit about today. So the first type of loan is that about 5 to 10% of the loans that are featured on Lendwithcare are to small and medium enterprises, so SMEs. So you recognise the loans on the SMEs as being the ones that are probably for about £3,000 and more. So they're typically the SME loans. So these borrowers, they're also poor, but not at the bottom of the pyramid, so they're slightly less poor. Again, some of them might qualify for a loan from the local bank, majority probably wouldn't. And the reason we support them is that it's the SMEs, it's the small and medium enterprises that create the loans, that create the employment for the poorest people in the community. So typically the poorest people in the community, there might be apprentices, there might be people with disabilities, it might be agricultural labourers. A significant category of the SME loans that we feature, they create employment for landless labourers. Now this is very, very important because the very poorest people in the countries where we work, they don't have their own businesses and they wouldn't qualify for a loan. So unless we feature this particular category, there's a big chance that we've missed them out altogether. So these are a couple of the SME loans that we featured. The first one, the gentleman, just go back one, the gentleman with he's got a business, a tailoring business. I think at one stage he had about 30 to 40 apprentices working with him. A lot of them actually go on and set their own businesses up after a while. He's actually made me a suit. Yeah, he's actually made me a very similar fetching outfit that I tend not to wear outside the house very often. I do have something similar. So that's a typical SME loan. If you go to the next one. So this lady, I remember, this lady's from the Philippines. So she set up a very, very interesting and innovative business. I'll just go into it, Tracy, though we might squeeze a bit of Daniela's time. Every time there's a typhoon in the Philippines, there's flooding. And a lot of it's got to do with these water hyacinths that sort of grow recklessly in the canals. So what she's done, she created a business where she harvested the water hyacinths, so she cleared the drainage channels, dried them, painted them, and made woven baskets and other things from them. And that's going on there. I think she had a deliberate policy of just employing single mothers. So she set up a cooperative, and then eventually I think she's handed over the cooperative to the women. The reason we really emphasise SMEs, in the bigger picture, I'll come to it right at the end, but I think to reduce poverty in the long run, sustainably, we need to create jobs. I mean, it sounds simple, but more people that have decent work and employment, less poverty there is. I mean, there's always other factors that don't make it equal, but so the World Bank estimates that 600 million jobs will need to be created in the next 15 years to absorb the growing workforce. So SMEs are terribly important because most of the employment that's created, decent jobs, are in the SME sector, and a lot of them don't have access to finance. So that's one of the categories on Lendwithcare. I mean, I do a lot of lending, well, actually the wife does, but she only lends to SMEs. You know, after I've given her the explanation of why SMEs are important, she just lends to SMEs. Another subcategory of borrower that we have is trying to help people from marginalised communities. So this could be, for example, persons with disabilities, and also communities that are discriminated against. So transgender people, for example, in Pakistan, is another category that we help. So if you can think that poor people generally lack access to financial services, if you're in a marginalised community, you're doubly discriminated against. Not only you're from a marginalised community, but you're poor as well. So our partners in Pakistan and Ecuador, both of them have a specific line of credit that they just target people from marginalised communities. In Ecuador, it's people who have disabilities, and in Pakistan, disabilities and transgender. And our program by a partner of ours in Vietnam, where I was a couple of weeks ago, they don't give the loans immediately. They have a training program for people with disabilities, and this gentleman is part of the training program. So he does painting, and then they sell the paintings and the handicrafts. And I think I bought a couple back, didn't I? Yeah. From Vietnam. So that's what's going on there. Eventually he will qualify for a loan. So this is when it gets more interesting, because you don't listen to me, you listen to this fellow. So this is a gentleman with a cleft lip from Pakistan.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਭਾਜੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਇੰਨੇ ਕੁ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਖਰਾਬ ਸੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਭਰਾ ਹੋ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਨਾ ਰੋਟੀ ਕਮਾਉਣ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਮੇਰੇ 5-7 ਬੱਚੇ ਨੇ ਮੈਂ ਰੋਟੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਮਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਭੁੱਖੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਦੋਸਤ ਮੇਰੇ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਯਾਰ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬੰਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਗਈ ਉਹ ਅਦਾਰਾ ਹੈ ਕੁਵਤ ਉਹ ਕਰਜ਼ਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਮਾੜੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਰੋਬਾਰ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਤੇ ਜੇ ਉਹ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਕਰਜ਼ਾ ਮਿਲ ਗਿਆ ਨਾ ਤੇ ਤੇਰੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਸੌਂ ਜਾਏਗੀ ਤੇ ਤੂੰ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਉਸ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਬਰਦਸਤੀ ਘੱਲਿਆ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਜੀ 3 ਮੈਂਬਰ ਲਿਆਓ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ 3 ਮੈਂਬਰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਗਿਆ ਵਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਮਹੱਲੇਦਾਰ ਉਹ ਨਾਲ ਲੈ ਗਿਆ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ 15,000 ਰੁਪਈਆ ਦਿੱਤਾ 15,000 ਦੀਆਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਛੋਟੀਆਂ ਮਸ਼ੀਨਾਂ ਲਿਆਂਦੀਆਂ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਕੋਈ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਗੱਡੀ ਰੁੜ ਗਈ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹ ਮੇਰਾ ਕਰਜ਼ਾ ਖਤਮ ਹੋਇਆ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਫਿਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਕਰਜ਼ਾ ਲਿਆ 5,000 ਰੁਪਈਆ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਲਿਆਂਦੀ ਮਸ਼ੀਨ ਵੱਡੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੇਰਾ ਕਾਰੋਬਾਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਵਿਅਸਤ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਹੋਰ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਹੋਇਆ ਮੈਂ ਰੋਟੀ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ ਕੋਈ 10-12,000 ਰੁਪਈਆ ਕਮਾਉਣ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦਾ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਮੈਂ 2,000 ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਮਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਫਿਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੂਸਰੀ ਦਫਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਰਜ਼ਾ ਤੀਸਰੀ ਦਫਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਲਈ ਇਹ ਮਸ਼ੀਨ ਤੀਸਰੀ ਹੁਣ ਮਾਸ਼ਾਅੱਲਾ ਹਫ਼ਤੇ ਦਾ ਮੈਂ 10-12,000 ਮੇਰੇ ਸੋਹਣੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਲੱਗ ਪਏ ਨੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਘਰ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਦੀ ਆ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਮੇਰੇ ਅੱਲਾ ਦਾ ਸ਼ੁਕਰ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਤਾਉਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਸ਼ਾਅੱਲਾ ਸਭ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਤਾਉਨ
So this is another category of marginalised community. So our partner in Pakistan has an initiative that provides loans to transgender people. Probably in Pakistan, I think they're the most discriminated community by far. This is a very successful. I think she's just been on the website and got a second loan from us as well. So another subcategory of borrowers that we have is that those loans that promote positive social or environmental change. So one example is that we have a lot of loans from Vietnam that enable households to install biogas plants in their homes. So rural households in Vietnam, generally they have quite a lot of animals, pigs usually, and obviously these will generate lots and lots of animal manure. So the animal manure is fed into the biogas plant, which is dug just outside their homes. The manure rots, it creates biogas, which is then fed in via a pipe into the kitchen, and it's used to power stores. Essentially, it means that they have free gas for cooking, for heating, for lighting, and there's also runoff that they can use as liquid fertilizer. So this means essentially that their electricity bills are reduced to almost zero. They no longer need firewood, so it means that the women save hours each day that they would generally have to go to the forest to collect firewood. It also means that they're not cutting down trees, which reduces deforestation. It also generally means that the environment around the house is much healthier. There's no zillions of flies in the summer. So these are green lawns that we feature. We have a lot of sanitation lawns as well. We've been trying to do a lot of solar lawns as well for solar panels as well. Within this broad framework, we have an ethical lending policy. So it's something that's it's important to mention. We cannot screen every single loan that our partner in country gives. However, we do screen every single loan that comes onto Lendwithcare. So we have to make sure that the recipient business is socially responsible, it's ethical, it's not damaging to the environment, as far as we can ensure. We don't take it to extremes, we have to be sensible about the policy as well. Particularly strict though, we won't promote loans that, for example, they promote poor animal welfare, so there's no caged egg production, for example, or loans that are environmentally unsustainable. We're forever sending emails to our partners once they have timber merchants, for example, just asking them whether I think Elisa's got fed up of the number of emails that she sends out to our partners. Is the wood sustainably sourced? Does the business owner have a permit to cut down the wood? And sometimes I say, why are you asking us all these stupid questions? So look, it's our ethical policy. We have to try and, as careful as possible, ensure that we adhere to it. And so at the same time, we also try and proactively encourage loans that create employment opportunities. And for that, I think the SMEs are very, very important. We try and promote sustainable agriculture, recycling. There's a lot of loans in Pakistan regarding recycling, renewable energy and energy efficiency. The reasons for poverty are so complex that I wouldn't even begin to sort of say that I can explain the reasons for poverty. It's complex, it's multifaceted, and certainly there's no silver bullet, and there's no single intervention that can alleviate poverty. However, I've been doing this work for the last 25 years, and so most of my time I spent overseas working in Latin America, in Asia, in Africa. I do think, in my experience, the following couple of quotes kind of sum up certainly my own thinking, and to a limited extent, I think also Lendwithcare's approach to dealing with poverty. So decent work is at the heart of the search for dignity for the individual, stability for the family, and peace in the community. And another one, productive employment and decent work for all, including women and young people, is the main route out of poverty. I don't want to oversimplify things in a complicated and complex world, but if I can reduce things to sort of what can we do on the global picture to sort of reduce poverty, I think it's all about creating employment. I mean, you're all familiar with the Chinese proverb of teaching a man to fish. I think this is very much along the same lines. So that, you'll be glad to hear, is all that you're going to hear from me, unless there's any questions at the end. We always speak about poverty and that we're reaching the poor. Do we actually always achieve our mission? Do we actually reach the poorest in the community? And are we sure that we're actually improving their lives? And I'm making a big assumption here by giving them a loans that I can explain a little bit about our impact assessment work with a UK university towards the end, if anybody's interested. But how do we measure whether people's lives are improving? The express aim of our partner from Zambia and Malawi, the Microloan Foundation, is to work with the poorest women and to enable them and their families to move out of poverty. A noble aim. To discuss how and whether they actually achieve it, I want to introduce a colleague of mine, Daniela Hawkins, who's a social performance manager for the Microloan Foundation. Thank you.
Hello everyone, hi. It's great to be here, and it's great to have the opportunity to meet so many of the lenders in person. So I'm going to be talking today about microfinance generally, but also specifically about what we do at Microloan Foundation. So one of the questions is, why microfinance? Why this particular intervention for addressing, as Ajaz has said, a very complex problem such as poverty? Well, I just want to give a bit of context because we talk a lot about poverty. It's a word that's bandied around, but what does it actually mean, for day-to-day living for our clients? It means living on the equivalent of less than 80 pence a day. It means surviving on just one meal a day and sometimes less when the harvest has failed. And you may be aware in sub-Saharan Africa there's been some terrible droughts this year. Living miles from the nearest proper road, having very poor housing with a leaking roof, no electricity, probably very poor sanitation. Watching 20% of your children die before age 5, these are the realities. Limited or no education for your children. A very low life expectancy. High incidences of serious disease, wearing poor quality clothing, and of course poor health and lack of access to medicines and medical facilities generally. So, these are the daily realities for people living in poverty, and of course, if you're financially excluded, that just serves to exacerbate those problems even more and makes it nigh on impossible to actually ever change your circumstances and move out of poverty. So our vision is to help the poorest women in rural Africa to help themselves and their families move out of poverty. So by 2025, we want to be the most effective provider of small loans and training to more than 100,000 women in the most marginalised countries in sub-Saharan Africa and help alleviate the poverty and transform the lives of their families and also the communities in which they live. And of course, that is something that we can't do on our own. This is why we need partnerships with Lendwithcare and support from people like yourselves to enable us to keep providing and developing more cutting-edge products and services to reach the clients that we're already reaching, but also to expand and always work with more clients and help more families. And we really believe that we can reduce poverty. But the situation is pretty serious. So over 74% of the Malawian population and 69% of the Zambian population are living in poverty. But we want to see an end to global poverty. We believe that it needs to be a sustainable approach. It needs to involve empowering individuals. So we were set up in 2002 by a gentleman called Peter Ryan, and he started with just £10,000. He started in Malawi, and the first loan was just $20. We set up in Zambia in 2009, and at the moment we've got a head office in London, and then we've got a couple of fundraising satellite offices as well in the States and Australia. We have disbursed over £33.3 million worth in loans since we first started, and that's to 494,000. That's 494,000 individual loans and 140,000 women. And of course, we talk about the multiplier effect. So we're not just working with women in isolation, because the whole point is that we want their families and their communities to benefit. So we're indirectly supporting over 500,000 children and orphans. We work locally, so we work with local staff. Our organisations are locally run. We have 27 branches, 158 local staff. And the countries that we work in are some of the poorest in the world, Malawi and Zambia. And we're soon to be expanding into Zimbabwe as well. So what sets us apart from other charities? One of the most important things actually is that the interest that we get from loans is used to cover our local operating expenses. So when somebody gives us a donation or lends us money, that money will go directly to our clients. And that money, of course, then comes back and then gets relent to to help more women and help more families. Another point of difference is that we really work with the poorest women. The women that we work with are at the bottom of the pyramid, if you like, and they are based in very hard-to-reach rural areas. We loan to self-governing groups that support each other. So the idea is that if somebody has a problem, that the group will rally around that client and help her repay. We give very small loans that are affordable to the poorest. So most of our clients fall under the $2.50 a day poverty line. And in Malawi, for example, around 50% of our clients are actually under the $125 a day poverty line. We support women with training and mentoring throughout. So I'll talk a bit more about that. I'll just give you some examples a bit later on. And we also teach women to save regularly. And saving is so important. So they're saving both for planned expenses, so things like educational costs or maybe farming inputs, but also the unexpected, so health problems, funerals, those sorts of things. And we're non-profit making, so every penny that comes in, we reinvest back into the charity and back into our clients. Why women? So we work exclusively with women, and a question that we're quite often asked is, why women? There are obviously a lot of men also living in poverty. Why not also help them? And of course, yes, poverty is widely spread, but we are a small organisation, and we feel that some of the statistics speak quite eloquently. So the fact that women make up 2/3 of the world's 1.3 billion people living in poverty. So if you're born female, you are statistically more likely to live in poverty. Women make up 50% of the population, but earn just 10% of the world's income. Women face social, economic, political, and cultural discrimination. But women are entrepreneurs, so they produce 60% of food, they run 70% of small-scale businesses, and they make up 1/3 of the labour force. They also tend to work together more, sort of in businesses, cooperatives, and they also tend to spend their profits on their families, and there's been lots of studies that have shown that. There's also been studies that have shown that women are less risky to invest in, so from a financial institution's point of view, that's also perhaps a driver. How it works. So I know it can seem a little bit abstract, and maybe, when you're investing, it's not perhaps that clear, how the process actually works of getting that loan to somebody and getting it back and doing the training. So I'll just talk through how we do things at Microloan. So our loan officers visit the women in these very, very far-flung rural areas, and they do that on a motorbike. So they're able to really get off the beaten track. I've sat on the back of many motorbikes and kind of bumped down sort of through maize fields and things. And these are places that you just wouldn't be able to access, not even in a 4x4. So once they're there, they provide training to the clients. And that training is provided both before the loan and then also during the course of the loan in sort of basic financial management, but also in topics like leadership. So we make small loans. The loans are on average about £60, and they're given to individuals, but they're given to individuals within a group. So you can only get a loan if you're part of a group. And then the group have collective responsibility for repaying that loan. So basically it's sort of our way of, it's kind of group collateral, if you like. We don't take any collateral, but the group is taking responsibility for each other. Each woman then starts her own business, and the types of businesses vary widely. So it could be just small market stalls selling vegetables or fish from Lake Malawi, or if they're slightly bigger businesses, they might be sort of small grocery shops or selling second-hand clothes. And then with the profits, they repay their loans over an agreed time period. And then, of course, the most important thing is they earn an income to help provide for their family's needs and to save for the future and for unexpected events. So with over 90% of loans repaid, the money is then re-lent time and time again. So more and more women and more families are benefiting from these loans. Got a little video now. So I just thought when I first got involved with Microloan Foundation, I found it quite difficult to try and get to the bottom of exactly what the organisation was about and what the impact was. And I remember doing lots of reading, I was talking to lots of people, but I didn't really understand it until I actually went out there. And within a few days of being there, it just all suddenly became clear. So what I'm going to do is just show you a little video and hopefully give you some insight of how things are. It's made with support from Deborah Meaden, who you might know from Dragon's Den. She's a great supporter of ours.
I'm Deborah Meaden, and I've spent my life in business. One thing I've learned is that even the best ideas often need a helping hand to succeed. I've come to Malawi in Central Africa to find out how women like these market traders can use a modest cash injection to generate a stable income that will lift them and their families out of desperate hand-to-mouth poverty. The odds are really stacked against these women. With the majority of the population earning less than £1 a day, the chance of getting a loan to start a business is pretty much impossible. But there is an organisation that is changing this. It's called the Microloan Foundation. I want to show you how this charity is helping women in Africa to turn their lives around by providing small loans and practical business training. And I hope that over the next few minutes I can convince you to do what you can to help too. Enela Banda's family struggled even for the basics.
Zimakandi zovuta magolo anga tezine mangu yuzingira ulimi paipo zimasowa kwambiri dai ndalama ndizo zimavuta kuti ife tana asitithandiza. Malaga kuti nitaphuza nitakhala ngati ineso maphunzitsa so ngati ana amene ali kumudzi kutengapo so ngati chimbali. Kwa ineyo sidanivuta kamba ka fees pa makolo anga anali so fees. Taimeneyo yona uzamunanga po nalira.
And history looked like repeating itself when Enela's children began to miss school because she couldn't afford books or uniforms. Enela's story is frustratingly commonplace. Loads of ambitions and good intentions and no means of unleashing them. But for Enela and thousands of other women, Microloan offers a way forward. It's early days for Enela's business, but I want to see if it's starting to make a difference to her life. So you've got the money, you've got a business, and what difference has that made to your life?
Ai moyo wanga uli bwino tsopano lokatundu aipa khomo alupezeka ndithu. Ana salugona ni njala chakudya chikupezeka sawa ni malima fodya ni malima chimanga ni malima. Ai sukuya ana tsopano nono tikusintha monga nkhani kwa makoba baba ini magulira ati paipa nopa. Nenzo ndiye nimakwanitsadi kusamala banja langa.
Many of the women that Microloan lend to have no previous experience of managing money, so the charity provide regular training for their borrowers. Many people in Malawi are illiterate, but Microloan believe that shouldn't hold them back from learning the fundamentals of business. How do you teach people who can't read and write?
Normally we sing, because when we sing, they do remember.
Everybody sings, everybody dances, so it's the language that
and
they
it's
understand.
Easy. Yeah, it's easy. Each year, Microloan lends to over 35,000 women, but they want to help so many more. I know business. I know this approach works. Please give what you can.
Right, so hopefully that's given you a little flavour anyway of what we do, and had a chance to see some of our women singing and dancing. So it's amazing the welcome you get when you visit some of our groups. So anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the challenges because, as you might imagine, providing these sorts of services in the context that we do is not easy. One of the challenges is that it's actually physically very difficult to reach these women who are based extremely rurally. And what we do is, as I mentioned, we use motorbikes, but obviously it's quite expensive, travelling sometimes up to 60, 75 kilometres one way, and loan officers will have up to 3 groups to visit in a day. Literacy levels are very low, so as you'll have seen from the video, we design our products and services to be appropriate to our clients' needs by training, for example, using singing. The new communities that we go into are often quite mistrustful of newcomers, and that can result in quite harmful rumours sometimes spreading. So what we do is we always go through the local leaders when we go into a new community, and then it's the chief who gives us permission to operate in that area and who sort of calls together the community, and so then we're able to introduce exactly who we are and what we're doing and avoid all those sorts of problems. Qualified staff can be really hard to find, so we've developed our own in-house training programme to train up our staff. Then the last couple are sort of more general challenges that are to do with microfinance. So one of them is that using financial mechanisms to achieve social goals doesn't automatically result in positive social outcomes. So I think sometimes in the past, microfinance institutions were a little bit maybe blasé in thinking that by simply providing small loans that they were doing good and that people were benefiting, but that doesn't follow at all. It requires active management to make sure that you are actually, first of all, understanding your clients' needs and then meeting those needs and benefiting the clients. The second is linked to that. It's harder to measure social outcomes than it is financial outcomes. So it's very easy to talk about number of loans, to talk about repayment rates and things like that. But actually, that doesn't tell us anything about whether the client's benefiting. In fact, sometimes the better the financial figures, the worse the impact on clients. So it's really, really important for socially focused microfinance institutions to have an excellent understanding of their clients and of how the clients are benefiting. So this brings us to social performance management, or SPM, which is, Jazz has mentioned, is basically about making sure that what an institution is doing is meeting their social mission. So our social mission is working with poor women and enabling them and their families to move out of poverty. So social performance management is all about all the systems within the organisation that enable us to achieve that mission and making sure that they're all aligned. So just to give you a few examples, SPM makes sure that we actually are reaching poor women. We say we'll work with poor women, but we need to actually know that we are and be able to demonstrate that. We use a poverty assessment tool to tell us the poverty level of our women when they first join us, and then we can track their poverty status over time as well. SPM makes sure that we're protecting our clients with our practices by always treating them with respect and by not over-indebting our clients. So really that's so important to make sure that they can afford the loans that they're taking from us. We make sure that we are supporting our clients with appropriate quality products and training services that meet their needs. And also making sure that we have this balance between the financial objectives of the organisation and the social objectives of the organisation. Because it is a financial institution, it's quite easy to drift from a social mission. So it's really important to ensure that all decisions taken are taken with the client's best interest at heart. And just to sort of give you a bit more of a insight into sort of SPM at work and and how that kind of translates into what we do on the ground, is our client training program. So you'll have seen the singing and dancing happening That's very much a part of it. So we use adult learning methodologies because so many of our clients do have limited formal educational background. We use things like role play stories. We use sort of pictures here, like you can see. That's taken from our market research training module. We use locally available materials, so we use things like beans to represent money, leaves to represent savings goals, and so on. And then the training modules themselves are quite, the topics are quite broad, so there's a lot, obviously, of focus on business and business management, so pricing, profitability, market research, business planning. But then there's also a focus on building people's leadership skills and group problem solving and ensuring that groups understand about long-term support and rights and responsibilities that the clients have as well. And then finally, there's the mentoring and support work that we do that's equally as important as the kind of more formal training aspect, because the loan officers are in such an excellent position because they're meeting these clients every 2 weeks to really understand the clients, to know their backgrounds, to know their problems, so they're able to offer that sort of tailored support depending on the circumstances. So, as I mentioned, it's a lot harder to measure the social impact of an organisation, but at Microloan we really feel that that's important. So, I'm going to give you a few statistics now, and these are taken from a couple of recent reports. One which was in partnership with Scottish Government and Edinburgh University, and another was an independent evaluation that was done as part of a 3-year DFID grant. So the first is around business profits, so the fact that women increase their business profits and use the profits to pay for things like food, clothing, medicines, housing, etc. And we've seen from our studies that there's a 37% increase in business profit in our clients over 2 years. And before joining Microloan, clients report having food available for just 10 months of the year. After joining, they have food available for almost 12 months of the year. We see an increased number of children attending school. 86% of clients report all their children attending school. Successful businesses develop thriving communities and increased economic development, and the clients also learn new leadership skills, and that is of benefit to the wider community. So we see an increased engagement of our clients in their community. There's a 101% increase of clients joining groups after 2 years, and that includes groups including church groups, well communities, and others. We also see an increased financial security through women saving regularly. As I've mentioned before, savings are so important. Before joining Microloan, 11% of clients report saving, but after joining, 97% report saving. And over 2 years, we see a 353% increase in use of savings for food and a 400% increase in savings used for fertiliser for food and cash crops. So you can see the essential uses to which those savings are being put and how important they are. Women are empowered. We give them independence and a sense of self-worth. 85% of clients feel very confident going into a bank. And that may not sound particularly sort of important, but actually when you consider that most of these clients will have never even stepped inside a bank before, that is hugely significant. 89% contribute to the household income, 80% have increased financial independence, and 55% have an improved social status in the community. So they're quite powerful statistics, but wonderful as statistics are, and much as I love them. We're about people, so I want to finish by just talking to you about one of our clients, who's Catherine. Catherine is one of our very first clients. So she joined our first group in a town called Nkota, which is on the shores of Lake Malawi. So that was back in 2002. And she was really struggling. She was living in poverty. She has a huge family. She was really struggling to feed and educate her children. Her husband was employed on another person's fishing boat. But then over the years, Catherine has really managed to turn her life around. So it started small. With her first loan, she was just buying and selling fish from the lake. And then the next time she was able to buy a fishing net. And then after subsequent loans, she was able to buy a fishing boat. And then 2 more boats. And then she was able to build a house. And now she's employing 24 people. And including dependents, that's 156 people. Just from one person that we've helped. So when we talk about the multiplier effect and this kind of ripple effect, I think Catherine's case really demonstrates that. Because it's not just one person, it's so many people. It's all the people she's employing, all their families. So this is where she is now, so that's her family, you can see it's big. This is the house that she's built, so she actually rents that out, so that's another source of income. She's built a water standpipe in her community, so that's clean water for her family, also for the community. She runs a small grocery shop, and that's one of her boats. So yes, as Jazz has said, I just want to finish by saying a couple of things. Microfinance is not a silver bullet, so poverty is such a complex, multifaceted situation. And there's no way that a single intervention like microfinance could ever really solve that. But it can certainly help and contribute positively. And also the changes don't happen overnight. So as you'll have seen from Catherine's case, those changes were gradual and they built upon each other. So it's really important for a microfinance organisation to be there for clients, to allow them to develop and allow them to build and grow with them. And my second point is around microfinance providers' responsibilities. So it's really important, if as a socially focused microfinance provider, to be very confident that what you say you're doing is what you are actually doing, to really understand your clients and to make sure that you're meeting their needs. That's it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniela. I hope everyone enjoyed that. So I'm not sure what everyone does know, but Lendwithcare always works through a local partner. So we're working in 11 different countries. And Microloan Foundation are our partner in 2 of them, and maybe 3 if they expand to Zimbabwe. But so in each occasion, there's always a local organisation on the ground that are actually giving the loans. And Lendwithcare, what we're doing is giving them a line of capital through you at no interest so that they can help more people and it kind of expand their operation. So thank you very much, Daniela. I won't keep you long because I know there's more drinks and lots of lovely food that QA have kindly provided. I just wanted to sum up with a few things, mainly about how you can kind of help a bit more. So you've all got something on your chair about how you can spread the word about Lendwithcare. There's lots of different ideas. You might do 1 or more of those. But obviously the more lenders we've got, the more support we can provide. And word of mouth is the best way of us attracting other lenders. As you can imagine, we've got very small marketing budgets, so we can't afford to keep doing advertising, etc. So the more that you can tell your friends, maybe phone up a local radio station, write to your paper, etc. That would be wonderful. And also, Elise is kind of organising some filming here. We're going to be doing a PR campaign with the help of a kind of a free support from a PR agency around the idea of who might have believed in you either in any way in your life, and then why you believe in supporting entrepreneurs through Lendwithcare. So if anyone is up for kind of being film, talking about any of that, please kind of hang around afterwards, but we understand that's obviously not for everyone. The sort of thing, if someone picks up a camera and puts it in my face, all of a sudden all your words kind of don't come out. But some of you, I'm sure, are brilliant in front of a camera. Yes, that's true. We have got a little whiteboard so you can just write on something and have a photograph taken as well. Just a couple of other little smaller Lendwithcare things I wanted to tell you about. I don't know if you know that we have a little Lendwithcare shop with some products made by entrepreneurs. They're fantastic Christmas presents, obviously. Elisa's got a few examples out in the main room, but literally you'll find it on the Lendwithcare website. But there's a link, and particularly Teresa and I went to Malawi recently and met the ladies from this Karma workshop that started with a loan from the Microloan Foundation, now train hundreds of other seamstresses and make these fantastic bags. It's mainly different types of bags, but they're really beautiful. I've got some myself, so you can have a look at them out there and you can order them on our website. We've got the odd little Lendwithcare branded item